You have all the knowledge, you have the technology. And we are now live. Welcome everybody to episode 5 of season 6 of the Level Up Your Wealth podcast. We talk about the gaming industry from a business perspective. One of your hosts, Marcus Howard. Mario couldn't be here yet. He will be here later. He'll join us a little bit later, but we're excited to talk to the executive director of the IGDA Foundation, Alyssa Wallace. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for joining. I know this is a little bit different from your regular schedule, so we're going to keep the energy high. And to do that, before we get too much into the conversation, we're going to start with a video game.
Fantastic.
All right, so let me share my screen. The camera's here, so I got to look for the screen share button, but it's right here, window. There we go. If you're joining us, please let us know where you're tuning in from. We can see you in the chat. We want to say hi. And we're going to kick this off. It's first to 5 points. All right. Alyssa, you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's go. Okay, I got the first point. Then we tied. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Before the show, we were at the green room. We played a quick match, and Alyssa won. So this is trying to be a comeback for me. I think I'm holding my own. Got an extra point there. She tied it back up again. Oh, match point. Here we go. This one's for all the marbles. And I won that one. Okay, so in the series, Alyssa and I are tied 1 win to 1 win. That was fun. Thanks for playing, Alyssa.
You're welcome.
Let me shut that down. We'll jump right back into it.
Hey, Michael.
So
nice to see you in here.
Oh, we got chat messages. Awesome.
Hey, Matthew.
Matthew Hickson.
I can see messages, Michael, so I'm excited.
You can. That's Restream doing Restream. Michael Miles and I played Marvel Rivals a couple of days ago, and he carried the entire team, myself included. He's joining from Colombia. Thanks for joining us, Michael. Matthew Hickson was actually our guest last week. He's been on the show twice. He has a cool book, ironically, about helping parents understand their kids' passion for video games and turn that passion into career opportunities. So he both has his own esports company. He's a professional player. His gamer tag is 99 Cent McFury, and he's an esports coach at a college.
Cool. Awesome. Love it.
So let's talk about your career. You've worked in the gaming industry for a little bit, right? So tell us a little bit about it.
A couple years.
Couple years. Yeah. Tell us about it. I know that you also are an actress. Can we start there first and then?
Oh my. Okay. I love that. We're like going backwards chronologically. So
yeah.
I decided in my late 50s to take an acting class, and I lived in LA at the time. And so I went to an acting studio along with 30 20-year-olds and decided if I like this, am I going to try it? And one of the first things the teacher said was to this room of 20-year-olds, you're going to last 6 months and then you're going to go back home. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I thought, oh, let's give it 6 months. I tend to be very impulsive. And so I thought, let me give it 6 months and see what I think after 6 months. Very long story short, after the 6 months, I was like, okay, I'm going to go audition. And so I auditioned for a student project at USC, which is where I went to school. So I felt very comfortable on campus and got it. It was just a student project, but I got the first thing and I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. And then I auditioned or got selected to audition for indie feature comedy. Comedy feature, whatever. And was shocked that I got a call back. So they brought me back to, read for the part again. And another long story short, I was cast as Sheriff Maggie in Wild Boys, and which is came out in 2023. It's on YouTube. It's a very silly indie comedy, very fun. And I had a lot of screen time, which again, all very surprising. And now I'm working on the side on a couple projects that I'm helping write with friends or produce. And so it's my side gig. Or my hobby. Let me call it a hobby. Because it's something fun right now that is more creative than my day job.
Mm-hmm. Do you get paid for those, or is it volunteer? No. Okay. So it is definitely, it's 100% a hobby.
Not yet.
Yes. It's a side gig when you start to get paid. Until then,
yeah. So right now it's a hobby.
It's a hobby. It's a hobby.
I've done a little bit of voiceover for some friends who are game developers, because I'm older, and so I always say, if you need somebody to help out, that on your scratch tracks or whatever, I'm here. And so that's been fun, to have these random emails come through like, hey, we just need a couple things, for this demo that we're doing. And so I've helped out a little bit with some friends. So that's been fun too.
Awesome. We have someone tuning in. I can't see your name, but tuning in from Raleigh, North Carolina. You used to live in North Carolina, right?
I lived right near Raleigh in Fuquay Arena. So I don't know if that's near this person's area, but we just left there in August. I miss it a little bit.
Yeah. And then Keegan, I introduced you to Keegan yesterday. He's tuning in.
Hey, Keegan.
Thanks for your support, Keegan. He also
we have a call. We have a call coming up. So yeah.
Okay. So, and it's great to see that you were able to start in that opportunity in acting further into your career, because I know that there are folks who think they can't get into the gaming industry unless, they do it at the beginning, but you managed to make more opportunities for yourself.
Oh my gosh. So I do a lot of mentoring, which is why you introduced me to Keegan. I've been doing it for probably 30 years. And I am a strong believer that no career path is not linear. I started out in advertising. I worked on fast food clients in advertising early in my career. I ended up in direct marketing at Disney. And then I ended up selling Bible videos at Hanna-Barbera. And then I have been in video games since the early 90s, which was that was not planned. So I believe anything's possible. And I'm really happy with the fact that my career has kind of gone all over the place. And I love that at this late point in my life, I'm trying something new.
Awesome. Congratulations. Can you talk about your first job into games?
Yes.
Was it something that you sought out? Is it something that kind of fell in your lap? How did that happen?
So I was working at a company that is part of Sony, but at the time was called Columbia TriStar Home Video. So back in the VHS days. And my degree,
I remember that.
My degree in college was history and criticism of film, which was not anything I could use, or I didn't think I could use. And I got this job at Columbia TriStar Home Video, and I got to manage the Columbia Classics line. So I got to use my degree. My main job was marketing what my boss referred to as the black hole, because I didn't get the new releases, the things that went to theaters. I had everything else, which included the Columbia Classics, Laserdisc, TV movies of the week, and video games. So my boss had worked at the original Atari, wonderful man by the name of Chris Deering. He had been in international marketing at the original Atari and was now head of marketing for international for Columbia TriStar. And Sony at the time did not have PlayStation yet. And there was a division that was creating cartridge games of new release movies. They were trying to synergize between the two. And so part of my job was helping pitch Sony on that division on different countries, because we were in international. And so I went with him. We hired a consultant to help me out, and we went and pitched this Sony division on why we should be the ones to take their games to market. We had all the same retailers. And in each country that we worked in, mostly we're talking about Europe at the moment, I hired a consultant, somebody who I think in the two key places came out of the record business. So I don't know why they were our consultant on video games, but they were. And so what we did was we were able to secure distribution rights in a few countries to sell Sony cartridges in those markets. And then we also pitched THQ and secured that business, and Acclaim and secured that business. And so I was the one responsible for managing those relationships and managing the distribution on the back end. And very long story short, Chris became the president of PlayStation Europe a couple years after we were doing this, because in that intervening time, he was working very closely with Japan as they were creating PlayStation and coming up with the launch plan. And because of his international background, he became president of PlayStation in Europe, based in London. And one of my friends got the job of international sales working for him. And this person worked in the United States for the Sony division, had no international experience. I was like, what is going on? What? How did he get that? That's my job. Like, I have been managing these guys. What is happening? And I'm dear friends with him to this day. And he called me a couple weeks into this job. So this is the summer of 1995. And he said, I'm going back home. I'm not staying. He's an American. And so I immediately called Chris and I said, that's my job. Like, I want my job. And he's like, well, I don't know, kid. As your friend, we don't know if this PlayStation thing is going to be successful. Are you sure you want to make this move? I don't know if we can get you the paperwork. Like, I don't know. And I was like, it's my job. Like, it's my job. So I started on October 2nd, 1995. We launched on September, 2 days, or the Friday before. I got there on the Monday. And it was the most amazing job. I was there for 3.5 years. After 2 years, I tried to quit because I was homesick, living in London. And I'm from Santa Monica. So where all these fires are happening right now is where I spent 20 years of my life. And so I was just like, I need to be in the sunshine. I am missing the sunshine. And he's like, oh, you're not going anywhere. You love this job too much. And it took me over a year to actually leave because I did not want to leave. And one of the things I did while I was there, because of my background at Disney and Hanna-Barbera, I knew that we were leaving money on the table with kids products because we didn't really have any. We had 2 titles. We had a Mickey Mania title, which was a SNES port, and we had a Rayman title. So those were the only 2 games at the time. This was pre-Crash, pre-Spyro. Those were the only 2 titles that had a cartoon character on the front. And so I went to my friend Jim Ryan, who recently retired as the CEO of PlayStation, but he was in finance and my pal. And I said, could you look up these 2 games and just this is probably 1.5 years in. And like, could you just tell me what they've sold? And at the time, a huge seller was like 1 to 1.5 million units. And most things would be on the shelf max 6 weeks because it was retail. There was no digital. And he's like, oh my God, these have sold hundreds of thousands of units, which nobody had been paying attention to because they were just ticking over. Had been ticking over for at least a year. And so with that data, I went to Chris and I said, so, you know how I keep bugging you about this kid stuff that I think we're leaving money on the table? He's like, what? Like, here's the info, here's the data.
Yeah.
Prove that there is a market because people are buying these kids titles, which aren't good. They weren't great titles. I mean, no offense. If anybody from
objectively
the
compared to what they could have been.
Yeah. And so he gave me access to the production team, 2 guys who are producers internally, first party internal producers. And he said, go start pitching. And so I secured a deal with Mattel. And again, very long story short, secured a deal with Mattel and secured a deal with Henson, negotiated those deals. And so when I actually left, I was like, so who's going to manage those relationships that are based in Los Angeles? And so that's how I started my consulting company, was by managing those relationships on behalf of PlayStation Europe in LA.
That's cool. So this was after you left your job in Europe to return home.
Yeah.
It's perfect timing. Do you know Sean Layden?
Oh, very well. Yeah.
So ironically, he was a guest on the podcast, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. And he was telling the story about kind of the genesis of the PlayStation, because he says, of all things, he was a diversity hire because they needed someone like an American in Japan. He's telling the story on the podcast, and he's talking around the same timeline as you are. So I didn't know if you had a chance to work with him.
He moved back to London right before I left, so we had a little bit of an overlap, which is why we're friends. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It was awesome. A very small team at the time, and a real family feel, which PlayStation today is so different. I was in London in December for an event with a bunch of PlayStation people, and we were just talking about how it's just this big monster now. Like, it's just this big corporate thing. And we used to call ourselves the $1 billion startup. You know, we were just, we had the best time. And my job there was managing the territories, who got a lot of leeway to try a lot of different things for their markets and what works best in their territory. Let's say in South Africa or New Zealand was not what would work in the UK or the US or whatever. So it was great. And one of my jobs was managing scarce allocation. So we had like about 6 months out of the year, we would be out of supply. And so my job was taking whatever was coming in on a boat, or we had to ship in on a plane around Christmas, and making sure the right amount got to the right countries. And had a lot of anger. Well, not a lot. One angry territory that didn't understand that sugar worked better with me than being nasty. And so, did my best to give everybody as much stock as we could, but it just didn't exist, which I think is one of the reasons why we were so successful, based on data of like how many per capita, whatever. New Zealand was such a small market, they kind of got whatever they needed, and they had supply on shelf, whereas no other territory had supply on shelf because they didn't get as much as they needed. So that was really interesting to me to see how that supply and demand philosophy worked.
That's awesome. So you were part of the emerging market of games, just by extension of VHS tapes. And Keegan remembers VHS tapes as well. I remember Columbia TriStar. I can't name the movie, but I can remember like the animation before when the movie started. Columbia TriStar.
Yep. So there was we would go to screenings, and the Columbia lady was the Columbia lady, and then the TriStar logo was this horse, and the horse would, like, it was all animated, and it would come up, and then it would stop. So I would always like stand up in the middle of the room and be like, I don't know, it's so stupid. But distribution was what we were all about. And so my job and the job at PlayStation was a distribution job. So I have not been involved in production. I have not made games. I have always been on the business side. And I fell, to answer your original question, I fell into games, and I love games because it's so dynamic. There's always something new on the horizon. I think it keeps me young because of all that change and how dynamic it is.
Awesome. I'd like to talk a little bit about your time at Atari, if you don't mind. But before that, I just want to make sure everyone in your family in California is okay.
Yes, thank you for asking. Yes. Okay. They are not in that area, so thanks very much for asking. Everyone's fine. And the people, my friends who were in the area, don't have their houses anymore, but they're all safe. So everybody's okay, which is the most important thing.
You can't get your life back. You can get things back, but you can't get your life back.
Yeah. Exactly. So I started my consulting company right after I left PlayStation
Yeah.
and consulted for a little while. And then Infogram, if anyone remembers Infogram, came calling because the guys who owned Infogram, Bruno Bonnell and Thomas Schmieder, they approached me when I worked at Hanna-Barbera and bought the rights to the animated Bible series for France. So that's in the late 80s. So I had known they were one of the first international connections that I made, and that's another whole story. But so they approached me after I left PlayStation and said, look, we just bought GT Interactive. They were huge at the time. And we need an American who can help us integrate all these different divisions from these different companies. And we need somebody who we can trust, who has an international feel, an understanding. And so it worked out fantastically. It was just great for me. So I worked for them for almost 2 years. And during that time, we bought Hasbro Interactive. And so I helped with the integration from an M&A perspective, mergers and acquisitions, of making sure that we had the right teams in the right places. And when I think at one point we had 5 US marketing hubs. We didn't need 5 US marketing hubs. And I know there's a lot of, nobody likes to talk about layoffs, but at that time and in that situation, it wasn't practical to keep the company going. And so I did that. And then I had a business idea that was to because of the acquisition of Hasbro Interactive, Infogram was able to change its name to Atari. So it's not the original Atari, the one that exists today. It acquired the name because Hasbro owned the brand Atari. And so when Infogram bought Hasbro Interactive, it bought the catalog and all the IP for Atari and changed its name to Atari. So that is why
I didn't know that.
That's the Atari that you know today. And part of my job, I think my title was SVP of Corporate Evolution, because we really needed to evolve, and I'm a big proponent of change and growth. And one of the ideas that I brought to Bruno, who was my boss, was, hey, this thing's happening in movie theaters with digital projectors. I think we should be taking games into movie theaters. And that's what Atari should be. And he was like, I don't get what you're talking about. I think that's a bad idea. And I was like, well, I think it's a really good idea, and I need to go do it. And so we parted amicably. And the first person I called was Chris Deering. And Chris said to me, well, what do you want? And I was like, what do you mean, what do I want? I've only worked for companies. I mean, I had a little period of working for myself, but I wasn't an entrepreneur. Like I didn't understand all that. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, it belongs at Sony. You have the relationships in theaters. You own PlayStation. You have the content. I want to come make it happen.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well then, okay. I have this big meeting with all the senior leadership from every division and the head of the company in a couple weeks. Get me a deck. That deck was so primitive. Like, it was really like, here's a movie theater. Here's games playing with a bunch of people. It was, I would be horrified if I saw it again today. And so he pitched it. The CEO of PlayStation at the time was Howard Stringer. Howard came up to Chris afterwards and said, can you have Alyssa come meet me in New York? And so I went and met Howard Stringer and pitched, and I didn't even have to pitch. I walked in and he goes, yeah, I already get it. Because I can say the words, what I said here, and everybody understood the concept, right? And so, very long story short, again, I spent 9 years working on what we called big screen gaming. Because of how Sony is structured, it just never went anywhere within the Sony family. And so I tried to do it on my own for a very, very long time. And in 2011. Actually, in 2010, I had some health issues, and so in 2011, I was finally like, I have to stop. I can't keep pushing water uphill. There was no Twitch. Esports was just really getting going. I wasn't really aware of it, and what my concept was not trying to compete or be esports. It's very, very different, and I just had to walk away. So, that's my Atari story. And then I got asked back to be on the board. And so I was on the board of Atari from 2013 until 2022, serving on the board of directors of Atari SA, which is a French company. And so that was a really great experience. And I've been in indie publishing and now the executive director of the IGDA Foundation.
Yeah. So quite the storied career. I had always seen that Atari SA, and I didn't know what the SA stood for. I still don't know what the SA stands for. I'm sure it's French.
So you know how in the United States we say Inc. And in Germany it's GmbH. In France it's SA. And so because of Infogram being a French company, that's why it's Atari SA, because it's still a French company.
That makes sense. Mario should be joining us here shortly. I want to take a few moments while we see if he shows up. And if not, we'll just shift over to IGDA and see if anyone who is tuning in has any questions. I know Keegan's here, Matthew Hickson's tuned in, Michael, anyone else who is watching. Alyssa obviously has a wealth of experience. And so if you have questions about, what it's like to work at larger companies, or you may have some more questions when we shift to the IGDA and the foundation work, feel free to send them in the chat. Happy to get those answered.
And I obviously love to talk, so please ask questions that I can tell you something you'd like to know about.
That's cool. I think I agree with you. You're just a little bit too early with the movie concept. You and I have had this conversation offline. My brother and I were too early with Indie Game Discovery Solution. We scaled it, but it was bankrupting us. And now it's interesting to see, and I'm excited to see all of this attention now from the same investors who told me that the thing that I was presenting to them wasn't going to work. They're now like actively investing in indie games. So it's funny, kind of annoying, but still funny.
Funny, not so funny.
Yeah. All right, so let's shift gears. So you are the executive director of the IGDA Foundation. For people who may not be aware of the IGDA, if you don't mind, can you start there and then shift over? That's a mouthful, like the International Game Developers Association's foundation.
I actually prefer to start with them. So thank you.
Okay.
Excellent setup. So the IGDA is the International Game Developers Association. For some reason that I am not completely aware of, the IGDA Foundation came about separately, even though we are the International Game Developers Association Foundation. We are two separate organizations. We have two separate boards, two separate executive directors. We are legally two separate companies, or we're not a company because we're a nonprofit.
Right.
We have a designation that anybody in the US would know as a 501c3. It's not a term that anybody would know outside the United States, but it means we're a charity. The IGDA is a membership organization. They are a 501c6. So they are not a charitable organization. They have members. They have chapters, as most people know, because hopefully some of your listeners, watchers, viewers are in different IGDA chapters, which is fantastic. A lot of the people that come through the foundation are members of IGDA chapters, so they're very, very separate. They have special interest groups. They, have a lot of different things and many, many more members. So now I'm going to explain the foundation. And there's actually on our website, which is igdafoundation.org, there's in our About section, there is an explanation of what I just said, of how the two are different.
Is it okay before you move forward? Can I share the screen for the foundation website? Is that okay? Can I do that?
That'd be great. In fact, I was going to do it and share that page. So yes, that would be fantastic. If you go to About, just close out on that. That's my attempt to get people to donate to us. And go to IGDA and IGDAF, the next one down.
And if you are watching, you'd like to donate, since you saw that.
If you are watching, and
feel
you'd like
free to
donate.
do that.
But I don't know what happened. Can you go back to the About thing?
Oh, I clicked the mission statement by accident. Which thing was I supposed to click?
So go to About and then go below the mission statement.
Yeah, I clicked the first thing because I wasn't listening to you.
It's okay. There we go. So this explains what I just said much more eloquently. And so I actually just had to share this in the Discord for our own alumni. So it's a common conversation. Matthew, yes, I've been to E3 probably since 1994, I would guess. I ran E3 for Infogram. We spent $1 million on our booth. The 2 or 3 years I was there running each year. So we could talk about E3 in a minute. Absolutely. So the IGDA.
One more quick question.
Sure.
What favorite video game do you play?
Oh, do I play? It's an interesting way to state the question. I would say my favorite video game that I have played is Monument Valley. I call myself the lamer gamer. And so I would say that my favorite game I play now is solitaire, or different kinds of solitaire. I am not a core gamer. I am sorry about that. I wish I could be a core gamer. I have tried over the years to become one. It doesn't stick. So thank you for Monument Valley, because it's so beautiful. And if you haven't played it, I hope you will enjoy it. I love that, Matthew. So I really appreciate beautiful art and beautiful games and beautiful stories. I just don't get it. My brain, I don't know if it's because I'm too old and I'm not a digital native. My brain I just have a tough time. So I could play rock, paper, scissors. I was very happy that Marcus accommodated my lamer gamerness. It's very nice.
It's okay. We will not ask you to match up with us, team up with us for Marvel Rivals.
No. So the IGDA Foundation serves underrepresented and marginalized people around the world who want to work in the video game business. And so, oh, good. Thank you. I'm so glad you like Monument Valley 2. And they just came out with Monument Valley 3. I have not played it yet. So back in the day when the IGDA Foundation was formed, which was about 18 years ago, there were very few women in the video game business. I remember for many years, I was the only woman in the room. And so they brought people from underrepresented groups and marginalized genders to GDC. So that is how the IGDA Foundation was formed. And its foundation was to bring people who wouldn't have that experience of going to GDC and making that happen for them. And
what's
so
GDC, for those who don't know?
Oh, Game Developers Conference, which is one of the largest video game, I would say, business or developer focused conferences, as opposed to what Matthew was talking about, E3, which is a consumer focused show that sadly no longer exists. So E3 was consumer focused. GDC is Game Developers Conference. So it's lots of sessions about shading and engineering and things I don't understand to make game development better and to meet other people who are in the community. There's a lot of recruiting that goes on there. And it's just a great place for people who want to work in game development to be. And so up until 2020, the IGDA Foundation sent people to GDC and did other things, I'm sure, along the way. I joined the IGDA Foundation in 2022. And so a couple of years after the pandemic. The pandemic hit a week before GDC 2020. And so candidates had been selected and were probably very excited to attend GDC. And then all of that just had to stop. And the woman who was in my job at the time decided to create what we call the virtual exchange. So if you would not mind, since you have our website up, if you would go to programs in the like top section and go to virtual exchange, it's like I almost have a presentation, which is so much better for me. Yeah, there you go.
Mario's
And
joining
so,
us now. He gets to learn about the foundation as well.
Oh, that's good.
Welcome to the show, Mario.
This is fantastic. So the virtual exchange is a 6-week program that brings together people from all over the world to learn things that will help them progress in their careers. We have 3 cohorts. If you scroll down just a little bit, we have 3 cohorts. One is called Scholars. So, these are in backwards order. That's fine. So the third one on this list is International Scholars. And those are folks who are either in college or just graduated who want to work in the games industry from anywhere in the world. Velocity are people who have experience in another industry and want to take that experience and those transferable skills and work in video games. And then the last one is next gen leaders. And so those are folks who are currently working in the video game industry from a marginalized or underrepresented community and need help in progressing their career to the next level. So maybe they don't know how to advocate for themselves, or I do something during the virtual exchange every year that has become a constant, which is I have the next gen leaders help me run mock interviews for the Scholars and Velocity cohorts, because a lot of the next gen leaders don't have experience interviewing other people, right? Because that's something that is, oh, hey, Mario.
I'm here.
Sorry, I wasn't looking. I was talking and focused on what I was saying. Nice to meet you.
Nah, keep it going. This is good. And to your point, a lot of people don't have that experience when it comes to interviews and things of that nature. So very, very true.
Yeah. So we like to refer to Velocity and International Scholars as emerging cohorts. So they're coming into the video game industry, and the next gen leaders are self-explanatory. I just really love these cohorts. I love the programming. We have different kinds of sessions depending on who's selected. The applications are usually over 500 applications for about 70 spots. That's what's happened the last couple of years. And those applications are going to open in February. I don't know when this podcast is going up, but within the next 4 to 6 weeks, the applications will open for the Virtual Exchange 2025, which will be in August. And so that's an annual program that we run. I'm really excited that this will be our 6th year having that, which is just incredible. And it allows us to serve more people, because GDC is very expensive to send anyone to. And the virtual exchange, we can host people in all these different time zones from around the world, and they don't have to worry about a visa. So it's just really incredible, the work that we're doing, the testimonials that we get from people who say, you know, I didn't know I could have a career in this industry, and you've shown me how to get there. One of the people who helps run our Next Gen Leader cohort was in indie games and really wanted to transition into AAA and just didn't think that was possible. And they are now at Ubisoft working on AAA. And it's not just because of us, but it's because of the community that they built and the skills that they learned they already had and how to present them. So Keegan, yes, interviews is very nerve-wracking, and finding a way to have mock interviews and talk to a lot of people and get that experience is going to be really helpful. So this is our main program. We do have sponsored events. We're doing something with a group right now that has only had linear content, meaning filmed content, for their mission. And they said that they want to try games. They want to communicate their message through games. So we're having a game jam that's going to be announced January 20th with them, that I'm really excited about, because we're exposing somebody to a new way of sharing their story. And that's really cool. So this is our website, and there's lots more on there, but those are the highlights. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Marcus.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so let me close that down. I know that you had a couple of questions for Mario. Again, Mario is a certified financial planner and has worked across a variety of business sectors. So, if I am thrilled about the progress that the foundation has made. I even had an opportunity to volunteer as a mentor, I think 2 years ago. And I want to see more of this, but I also know that as a whole, the industry, the nonprofit sector of the gaming industry has had some challenges. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about that at a higher level, and what your thoughts around ideas for that challenge.
Yes. So because of the layoffs, I think, in our industry, I believe that's given the big companies who typically would sponsor us, meaning they would donate to us, that's given them cover to not do that. And that has really hurt us. Luckily, the foundation had a safety net built up over the years, and we operated at a loss in 2024. We are going to be operating at a loss in 2025. I am only part-time there because I can't justify paying myself anymore when we're a nonprofit, and I want to keep doing the work that we're doing. And so we figured out a way to make that happen. And so, Mario, what we're trying to do now is find different ways to attract funding.
Yeah.
And some of that could be from family offices. As one example, there's a family office that has reached out to us this is the third year, it was in 2024, that they allow their younger people in their family to select a nonprofit to support. And one of those young people selected us. And I am trying to figure out how to get to more of those people who want to support diversity in games or in the arts internationally. And I want to say one more thing before we finish, or like really talk about financing. Mm-hmm. One of the things that is really important to us is what I call the ripple effect. And so people that we give participate like grants to that participate in the virtual exchange or GDC, we look for applicants who are going to give back to their communities. And so one of our next gen leaders is in Nigeria. And I don't know if you've talked to him, Marcus. His name is Michael Oscar, and he created Africomicade, and now he's created a program called Spark. And we were able, even though we were operating a loss, to sponsor them for a few $1,000s this year. And that helped them give 9 months of education to 161 people throughout Africa to help educate them in a potential career in games, which is amazing. And so it's that kind of thing that we want to be able to do. It's not just about who we're serving in our community, but how can what we're doing serve other people in their efforts around the world, because it's not just about us here in the United States. And so I'm, Mario, trying to find different ways to reach people who want to support what we're doing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So for my background, I don't know how extensive it is, but for my background, I found with like especially high net worth individuals or donors or family offices, they're big on engagement, right? So I think the issue though is that a lot of these offices, a lot of donors, they're older in age. And older in age individuals might not get how important gaming is, right? So what you're doing, I think, is awesome. If you're looking at family offices now, with a family office, also they're a lot more uh, um, they're a lot more free with kind of how the money is spent, right? Compared to like this one donor. If it's a family office, people make decisions. It's a family, so you have an older person, a younger person. So going after the younger generation in that office, I think is big. So I think you're going right there. But it's kind of like, how can you engage? Because they want to engage, but they also want to inspire. So if you find family offices, or you find individuals that are in line with like what you want, if they have a mission, so you might want to maybe use, again, from a free standpoint, maybe use something as easy as ChatGPT, and ask from a prompt standpoint, what family officers or what donors have the mission that we have, and tell ChatGPT what your mission is. Then that at least might give you a list of individuals that kind of have the same mission that you have. So then it's a way easier phone call from an introduction standpoint, where, hey, you have the same mission we have. I looked at your website, and to kind of take it from there. One thing that you can also do, especially if you're looking for the younger audience from a family office standpoint, is have one of your cohorts an intern and do social media, right? So again, using ChatGPT as example, you find those that missions align with yours, find their social media, and start tagging them on things, right? And having some of your interns actually give you free labor, right? The labor that maybe you can't do because you can't justify yourself paying yourself for hiring a person. Maybe having those cohorts spending maybe 3 hours, 5 hours a week to kind of help drive. And I think from a donor standpoint, that makes them feel good about where they're directing their money, because not only would direct our money into a cause that we like, but the people that we're helping like this cause so much that they're actually using time out of their day to do it when it comes to the interns. So I think that might be a few examples of how you can basically use, I don't want to say free labor, right? But you can use free resources. And of course, the younger individuals, they know more about social media. Like, I'm in my 40s, I know more about social media than a person in their 60s, but a person at 20 could run laps around me when it comes to social media and target individuals. So I think if you use them as a resource, but then use things like ChatGPT to identify the family offices and the donors that have the same mission that you have, that just gets you a lot more targeted. Because if you spin your wheels with donors that don't have the same mission that you have, they don't have the same thought process that you have, they don't have the same values when it comes to gaming and how it helps the communities, and from a global standpoint expansion that you have, you're just kind of wasting time. And I guess from a resource standpoint, resources is time. Time is money, right? Time is really not money, because we can make money, but we can't get our time back. So I don't know why people say that, but either here or there. But yeah, so I think that's a couple ideas that can definitely help you in the right direction.
That's amazing. And I love the use of AI. I do that every day with what we're all about. So I love that you suggested that. I'm just trying to, and I don't know if everyone here knows what a family office is, but a family office is a family with a lot of money that invests it in different places. So I guess it kind of became obvious.
They have an office in their house, and that's where they work from.
When I first joined, I read about Mackenzie Scott. Mackenzie Scott is Jeff Bezos's ex-wife. She's giving away most of her billions, and her mission aligns very closely with ours. And so I was like, okay, we're going to get this Mackenzie Scott money. It's going to save us. It's going to be fantastic. And then I learned, as a 501c3, if you get a check for a couple $1 million, the IRS doesn't like that. And the IRS says, well, you have to raise that kind of money from somewhere else too, because you can't have all your funding from one source. And so I am no longer chasing my Mackenzie Scott dream, because we don't make that. Our budget is a couple $100,000 a year. It's not a couple $1 million a year. And so we're just looking for those families that have $5,000 or $10,000 that they want to help, our mission. And so I may reach out to you at some point with some ideas and see what you think of my plans.
Yeah. Again, just being transparent, like donations. I mean, that's not like my expertise, but definitely I could definitely lend, advice. I mean, I do more of like the money management part and like the tax strategy part. But I mean, I have been blessed to have a few high net worth clients and been able to help, organizations raise money. It's not my expertise, but definitely we can definitely have a conversation.
And you never know when you're going to come across someone who says, I'd really like to be putting some of this money I need to donate into something. And you're like, I know just the place. So that could happen too.
Alyssa, if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit about the HBCU and HSI component of international scholars, because I do know that Mackenzie Scott has donated a significant amount of money to HBCUs over the last year or two. And so maybe there's an opportunity where you connect the work you're already doing to some of the schools that have that gift, and maybe you can kind of tangentially chase that dream.
Yeah. So we had a cohort specifically for HBCUs and HSIs. And for anybody on there here that doesn't know what that is, it's historically Black colleges and universities and Hispanic serving institutions. So Black and brown colleges that are primarily for those students. And what happened was, and one of the reasons I first met Marcus was we were not getting enough applications from those schools. And so the first year, because when I joined, it was right before the virtual exchange started. And I think we had 10 applications for 20 spots for that cohort. And so that's sad to me. And so I spent the next year meeting people, talking to people, building a network within those, with those schools and with people who could help me reach people who were in those schools. And we still had a very unimpressive application pool, even with all the work that I had done. And so what we decided to do last year, or maybe in 2024, was the first year we did not have a specific HBCU HSI cohort. However, we heavily favored students from those schools in the application process to be part of the scholars cohort. So while we do not have that specific cohort, I think who we are serving and what we do includes that. And I don't think it has to be separated out. So as long as, at least for right now, this is how we're looking at it. It could change. We've made a lot of changes over the years since I've only been here in the 2.5 years, but we've made some really big changes just because things, there was no real mentorship program when I got here. We now have a mentorship database so that we can one-to-one match people. We decided last year to have our content for the HBCU, HSI type content. We called it BIPOC, and I understand that's now not an accepted term. So we're trying to find out what we should be calling it. I learned today in our board meeting that that's not acceptable. I'm Hispanic, so I know I don't look like it, but I am. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what, okay. Anyway, so we decided in 2024 to have that BIPOC content across all the cohorts. So that it wasn't just for the scholars age or the emerging cohort, but it was for everyone to get to know each other and to help each other across the board. So we're still figuring that out. Marcus, I don't know if that answers your question, but it was disappointing to me that we didn't have, I went to whatever was in Raleigh, there was a East Coast Game Developers Conference. I went to that. I met a number of students of color, talked to them. We had some applicants, but not the hundreds I thought we would get. So we're trying to figure it out.
Okay. Well, again, I think that's an opportunity. Maybe it will work out, maybe it won't work out. But I think given the work that you've done in the past, even though you don't have that dedicated cohort, that it's worth pursuing. And again, if you can, as Mario suggested, leverage ChatGPT and maybe the alumni network, I think there are pieces to a puzzle that can come together there.
Yeah, exactly. I hope so too.
Can you talk about what your plans are for 2025?
Yes, we have lots. So first up is we are doing this game jam, which is going to be announced on January 20th. It starts on February 20th. So that's the first thing that's happening. And then we will be at GDC. And so we are taking a very small cohort of only 10 people because that's all we can afford. We don't have a sponsor. Okay, IGDA membership is different than the IGDA Foundation. So we talked about that at the beginning. And I know that the IGDA has a great mentorship program. It's just very different from what we do at the foundation. So people have to apply for the virtual exchange or our GDC program, be selected, and then they are assigned a mentor. Whereas if you are a member of the IGDA, and let's say you live in a place that has a chapter, you can probably find a mentor on your own, or you can find one through their program, because they have a very sophisticated mentorship platform that I happen to know about because I talk to them, but it's not anything to do with us. So thank you, LinkedIn user. It's just a little bit different than what we do.
So this is a great testimonial for the LinkedIn user. I highly recommend IDA membership as a student. I participated in the global mentorship program, which helped me tailor my approach into the industry. So thank you for everything you do. What type of testimonial program do you have? Like, so you think about, like, if we're scrolling Facebook, we're looking at social media, things that catch your attention is not me pitching a product, it's a person testifying and doing a testimonial of my product or of my service. So like, what testimonial program or process do you have? Because I think from like a market, again, not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm thinking from a marketing standpoint, individuals have like pitch decks, right? We have a pitch deck, we pitch products, we pitch our service. You probably have some type of deck that you give to entrepreneurs, individuals that you want them to to support from a donorship standpoint. Like if you had like a testimonial deck where it was just testimonial after testimonial, or if you ran some type of ad, free ad, but just on maybe once a week, a weekly testimonial where a person has a testimony about what they did, what they learned, how they helped them get into the industry. What's going to happen? You're going to have more people, try to get into the cohort, which is great, right? The more people that comes in, the more people you say no to, but then the more it's exclusive. So you're going to see donors helping that way as well. So I think, not trying to tell you what to do, but I think if you had some type of program like this, that it was, they recorded it, on an iPhone, on an Android, you put it like in opusclips.com, you kind of create like a commercial of the testimonials. I think that'll go a long way from a marketing standpoint.
Totally agree. On our website, we have testimonials throughout. So there's a lot of testimonials there. We do collect testimonials from every cohort. And I made a note after what you said the last time about the intern. We have volunteers in marketing. We have volunteers for our alumni team. We have volunteers for fundraising. And I made a note to myself 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, that we need, as part of our social media strategy, a testimonial track. So we're thinking the same thing. We need to highlight those more so that we are communicating the heart and soul of what we do, because it is so beautiful to read the impact and see the impact from those testimonials. We did a game jam, and I will get back to our calendar, Marcus. We did a game jam in 2023 that Google sponsored for women. And they had a very specific ask for women emerging developers in Asia and Latin America. So that's what we did. And, one of the women teams, their testimonial was, we didn't know we could do this on our own. We just learned that we could have our own studio, which is so powerful, right? So I totally agree with you. And I'm a marketer at heart. So yes, and we just hadn't done that. And I've been talking about testimonials a lot to our team just in general. And I think that's a great way to go about that. So back to our calendar. So GDC is in March. And then one of the other things we're doing as trying to find a new way to raise money is we're doing an event that we're hoping a number of developers will want to get involved with, where we have a Steam promotion for this event. And we're going to ask developers to donate a portion of the proceeds generated from that event to support us. So that's in May. And then we have an alumni weekend in July, which is something that is, unique in that it gives our alumni a chance to present to, if they've been trying to be accepted by GDC or another conference to speak, but they say, well, you don't have any experience. So we give people that experience, and it's streamed to our community. So that's in July. And then the virtual exchange is in August. And so that is a 6-week program in August. And then we have another game jam. And then we will have the second annual BIPOC virtual job fair in October. So those are the highlights for next year, or for this year. I can't believe it's already 2025.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I know that you do some consulting. You have anything cool that you're looking for this year, separate to IGDA, or you're going to be
IGDA Foundation?
Foundation. The foundation is 2 different organizations. I don't know why I made that mistake.
It's okay. One of our board members made it today, and sent me an email to me. I'm like, you're on our. What are you doing? Oh, anyway. So it's okay for everybody else, but I like to correct people only because if I don't, anyway. So yes,
you don't want someone to send a check to the wrong organization.
Yeah, don't send a check to them. Well, it won't be tax deductible either.
Right.
And it is very easy to donate on our website. Even $5 helps. So I do have a consulting business. I typically am a fractional executive for people who need, whether it's somebody to handle operations or strategy, because for a number of reasons. I don't know if anyone remembers Hitbox. We were a streaming platform that competed with Twitch. So I was their general manager as a consultant for a few years, actually. And so I am in the process of revamping my website, which will hopefully be up soon. And I'll share that on LinkedIn once that is ready. And hoping, I have a couple clients that are looking for funding before they can hire me. So talking to a few people about some different things. And in the meantime, happy that I'm able to, do the work that I'm doing with the foundation.
That's excellent. Well, I know you've been generous with your time. Thank you so much for that. Before we go, where can people find you and support you and find and support the IGDA Foundation? I'm going to bring the page back up. Maybe I already answered that question, but I want to make sure people can see this.
It's igdafoundation.org. And can I type in this chat?
You can. There's a private chat on our side, on the left side where it says private chat. So if you want to type something there, then I can.
Oh, and it will go in there, or you'll put it in there?
It'll go in there, and then I have a second monitor here, so I'll move it. Or you can share your screen, whichever is easier for you.
I just want to share my email.
Yes, that. So I can do this. There's a thing. I think it's captions.
So anybody who has any questions or has an idea about how to support us or wants to get involved, if you are interested in being a mentor for the IGDA Foundation, on our homepage towards the bottom are ways to help us, one of which is being a mentor. And so, yeah, right there, mentor. Don't click on it though, because it goes straight to the form. But the mentor link is there, and we really need people who want to support our community. We can't select every mentor. However, we may have a session during the virtual exchange where somebody gets sick and they're talking about production, and you've signed up to be a mentor. And so I know that you're interested in our community, and we go into that database like, we really need a production person to come talk to the next gen leaders about XYZ. And so we will tap into that database from time to time for other reasons than just purely mentoring. The game jam that we have coming up, we're going to need judges, and we're going to need mentors to just be in the Discord to answer questions while the jam is going on. So there's a lot of ways to support us. And I like to say, of course, we need money, but we also need mentors, and we need marketing. Meaning, when I share something, if you're following either me or you're following the IGDA Foundation on LinkedIn as an example, if you would share that with your networks, that helps us. So we just need people to know who we are and what we're doing, And if you believe in our mission and want to support us financially, that's great. But helping us out socially and from a marketing perspective or as a mentor is equally important.
So I read I forget which book it was, but there's it's a startup book that talks about the 3 different types of capital. There's financial capital, human capital, and social capital. So what you're saying is that you will accept donations of all 3 types of capital.
Exactly. And my friend James Lewis at Microsoft, who's on our board, came up with the money, marketing, and mentors. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I've been asking for. He's like, come on, you could do some alliteration there. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I can. So we have a great board who's very supportive, and I'm just really proud of what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, congrats for all the success you had last year. Much luck to you for your success this year. Please let us know how we can continue to help. Thank you so much for your time. Mario, where can people find you and support you this year? What do you have cool going on?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Painful Profits, PAYNEFUL Profits, because when we make money, it could be painful, but over time it is profits. Or you can check out our estate planning platform at relax, RELAX, estate.com, where we automate how we create a trust, a will, and a power of attorney.
Excellent. And I'm always on LinkedIn and now on Steam and Discord, trying to do some weekly game streams. Right before this podcast, I streamed Dave the Diver. So you find me, support me on LinkedIn. We will see you all next week. Thank you for your support tonight. Thank you for the excellent questions, everybody who tuned in. We'll see you again next Thursday to help you level up your wealth. Y'all have a great week and an awesome weekend. Thank you so much
for being here. I really appreciate all of the people that joined in. Thanks so much. And Marcus, thanks for inviting me. And nice to meet you, Mario.
Yes, you as well.
Awesome. I'll connect the 2 of you offline. If anybody has any questions or wants to connect with Mario or Alyssa, let me know. I'll connect you as well. Y'all have a great